This is Doc Savage, the man of bronze.
Just that I am the shadow, and the shadow can only be heard, but never seen.
Let us strive every moment of our lives to make ourselves better and better to the best of our ability.
Sometimes masquerading as the Spider, thus concealing his identity from both criminals and the police.
The weed of crime bears bitter fruit. Crime does not pay. The shadow knows. Shadow knows.
The book that changed my life was a humble, secondhand paperback reprint of an old Pulp magazine story written at the height of the Great Depression. On a cold autumn day, my maternal grandfather handed me the second Doc Savage novel, The Land of Terror. I was always a reader, always had one or more books going. My granddad, the man to whom I dedicated my first published novel, Head Games, often gave me paperbacks in that manner. Some interested me, some didn't. But this one grabbed me by the young scruff like no other, before or since. It was pure pulp lit, and the story moved like lightning. I was, I think, all of 8, and I read the book cover to cover at a sitting, another first for me. I sat on the floor with my back to a wall register, sucking up the heat and that first season furnace smell of charred dust in the heating ducts. But I was really just lost in that crazy thriller about a globe-trotting, latter-day knight-errant named Clark Doc Savage, Jr., and his band of scrappy, quirky aides. When I finished the novel, I read it again, and a third time after that. I started a years-long quest after the myriad bantam reprints of the 181 Doc Savage Pulp magazine tales with their moody, hyper-realistic James Bama covers. Alas, Bama didn't provide the cover of The Land of Terror. I completely skipped the Hardy Boys and the usual kid-level series my peers devoured. I found such books drivel compared to the Doc novels. Inspiration comes from the strangest of places and drives our lives in unexpected directions. For me, for better or worse, it all started in that little house on Woodlawn Avenue in Grove City, Ohio, with this teaser on the back cover that spurred me to open that book and read on. A vile greenish vapor was all that remained of the first victim of the monstrous smoke of eternity. Word came a few years later, and deep into my Doc Savage collecting mania, of a looming Warner Brothers film adaptation of the first novel in the series, The Man of Bronze, starring former Tarzan Ron Ely. More tidbits and teases began to drop via various film stills in myriad monster and sci-fi magazines, as well as through the Bantam paperback reissue of Philip Jose Farmer's mock biography of the Pulp character, Doc Savage, His Apocalyptic Life. In the latter, explaining a subsequently telling delay of the film's release, legendary producer George Powell boasted, "We made it too good." At that point, hopes continued to run high for a worthy movie showcasing Doc Savage and his crew, the Fantastic Five. June 1975. I was 13, and the Doc Savage movie was already effectively gaining reputation for being a dog. Although, frustratingly, I'd be a couple more years finding that out for myself. My parents knew my love of the Pulp magazine character. kept me in Doc Savage, Avenger, and Shadow paperback reprints, along with a couple of original Doc Savage pulp magazines. Yet somehow they failed to get me to the local drive-in, which was the only venue where the movie got a Central Ohio screening, and then only for a handful of nights. Should have been a further signal the movie was a misfire when it didn't even make it to the local CBS affiliate's late-night movie broadcast with Fritz the Night Owl sometime in the late 1970s. It was driving age when I finally caught a showing of Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze, via cable television. Maybe it was Showtime, maybe it was early HBO. Regardless, I watched the 112-minute camp-laden train wreck with a perpetual diehard Doc fan's pained wince. How could it have gone so very, very wrong? Along with all of its unfunny camp elements, animated eye twinkles, badly animated ghostly green snakes, some ghastly wooden acting from supporting performers, and notoriously an appalling use of John Philip Sousa music and phoned-in lyrics by sometimes James Bond lyricist Don Black, the movie was also certainly a box office victim of Steven Spielberg's blockbuster Jaws. In 1981, the Spielberg-directed Raiders of the Lost Ark would twist the knife for Doc Savage fans by giving a tantalizing taste of what might have been if only Doc had been in better hands. It's long been debated where the camp destruction of the 1975 Doc Savage adaptation began. Was it PAL? Was it a result of studio interference? Or perhaps it was owed to some combination of the two? In some back-then interviews, PAL betrays a lack of faith in the earnest American Boy Scout hero he claims to want to put on the screen, even making some rather cutting remarks regarding the corniness of Doc's code, delivered in the film by Ron Ely to a crowd applause track, a moment that reportedly made Lester Dent widow Norma Dent pridefully weep during one of her several back-to-back screenings she sat through.
Before we go, let us remember our code. Let us strive every moment of our lives to make ourselves better and better to the best of our ability, so that all may profit by it. Let us think of the right and lend our assistance to all who may need it, with no regard for anything but justice. Let us take what comes with a smile, without loss of courage. Let us be considerate of our country, our fellow citizens, and our associates in everything we say and do. Let us do right to all, and wrong no man.
Yet about 3 years later, the same studio would give us a wildly successful adaptation of a winning Boy Scout-like Superman in the person of actor Christopher Reeve, his Man of Steel flaunting the same first name as Doc, taking us again to the Arctic Circle, but this time to the Man of Steel's Fortress of Solitude, lifted by name and location from Clark Savage, the so-called Man of Bronze, who had his fortress first. In 1986, I bought the Pan and Scan VHS release of PAL's Doc film, looking to confirm if my single viewing years before was accurate in my assessment of just what a horrid movie George Pal and Company had perpetrated. My first reaction was, of course, too terribly reinforced.
When slithering horror threatens, when assassins narrow their sights, when terrorists strike, when killers fill the sky, when the green wigglies are coming to get you. When you're all doomed to die a horrible death.
We're all doomed to die a horrible death.
When you're in that kind of trouble, who do you call on?
Doc Savage! Doc Savage! Doc Savage! Doc Savage!
Today, the Pulp film currently holds a 57% Rotten Tomatoes score. Over the years, there have been several fan edits, and even a so-called tarnished version, that all seek to lose the animated eye twinkles, the painful opening narration, and the Sousa music in an effort to prove somewhere in there lurks a decent Doc Savage adaptation. Earnest as these attempts are in their painstaking execution, the resulting fan edits tend to be rather unsettling in their jumpy cuts. The new music, usually drawn from other films, doesn't effectively sync up to the mood or the rhythm of the screen action. Sometimes Doc and Princess Mona's kiss is there, and sometimes it gets cut. In the end, these fan edits tend to say more about their editors' tastes and values, while uniformly missing the mark of delivering an acceptable, if truncated, presentation of Doc Savage. Doc and his fans have dodged further cinematic bullets in the ensuing years. Go-nowhere adaptations have taunted us with the badly miscast Docs and the personages of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Dwayne Johnson. Leaked screenplays of both films lost in development hell do little to assuage the judgment that these would have proven little better than the PAL adaptation. It increasingly seems we'll never see a period adaptation of Doc. Myriad pulp hero-style period films of various quality have come and gone, all of them box office failures, including Dick Tracy, The Shadow, The Rocketeer, Sky Captain, The World of Tomorrow, The Phantom, various Tarzan films, The Lone Ranger, and others. The closest we're likely to get to a modern version of Doc on film is arguably Buckaroo Banzai, Across the Eighth Dimension, which, like the Doc film before it, even concludes with a title card teasing a never-to-be-made sequel. Increasingly, when it comes to the likely prospect of another film adaptation of the bronze-skinned scientist and adventurer, Clark Savage, it increasingly seems the Doctor is forever out. On September 29th, 2024, Ron Ely died. His last years were plagued by personal tragedy and ill health. Most of the remaining cast members have also passed. Still, 50 years on, my attitude toward the film has softened. Given it is likely the only Doc Savage film we'll ever have, and possessing copies on VHS, Laserdisc, and DVD, I occasionally watch them, these years forgiving the painful camp elements, and simply, as Doc Savage himself advised that we do, taking what comes with a smile.
The weed of crime bears bitter fruit. Crime does not pay. The shadow knows.